Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our Inspirational Interview series. I'm Hannah Levin with Heartfelt Wellbeing, Yoga, and Ayurveda, and I'm super excited to interview Dr. Dave Hamilton today. We can all call him Dr. Dave. So if you are tuning in here on Facebook and would like to contribute to the conversation, feel free to do that, even on the replay. And today we're going to dive into lots of different aspects of health. We're going to pack it full in our half an hour together with Dr. Dave. So without further ado, I'm going to read his bio and by way of introduction, and then we'll bring him on. So Dr. Dave specializes in botanical medicine, family medicine, pain management, and clinical nutrition. He uses these modalities to best individualize patient care. We like that, individualizing, right? He treats a variety of different conditions, which range from the acute cough or cold, pre and postnatal care, pediatrics, Lyme disease, hypertension, diabetes, thyroid disorders, autoimmune conditions. We're going to get into some of these, such as rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, Crohn's disease, gastrointestinal disorders such as food sensitivity, SIBO, IBS. You know a bit about those things in this community too. Anxiety and depression, eczema, psoriasis, fertility assistance, male and female health concerns, and a number of other conditions. So he received his naturopathic medicine doctorate from Southwest College of Naturopathic Medicine in Tempe, Arizona. And he also co-owns a small urban homestead with an emphasis on food as medicine. So this is super exciting for us to meet a doctor who's focused on food as medicine. So without further ado, here is Dr. Dave.
Hey, everybody. How's it going?
Good. Glad to have you here. So yeah, those of you that are live, there's a few of you here. Feel free to chime in the chat with any questions or comments that you have. So Dr. Dave, I'd love to hear a little bit of more of an introduction of how you would describe yourself as a human being at this point in time.
Yeah, so this is the 10th year I've been in practice, which seems kind of impossible. My journey was a little bit different than some. I'd graduated from college and I went straight to an osteopathic program here in Virginia. Did a year there, took a leave of absence, and then a path led me to naturopathic medicine. My mentor said, "Dave, you should check this out. This might be more aligned with you." And I said, "Are you sure? What is this thing?" And I went and checked it out. Took a week off and went to Arizona and felt at home immediately. And a year later, after saving some money to move cross country, finished my medical education at Southwest College Naturopathic Medicine, which is now, I think they just changed their name to Sonoran University of Health Sciences or something. So me as a person, I try to practice what I preach, but at the same time, I'm human. And I try to do as best as I can with the tools I have available at the time. And that's what I hope for most of my patients. And everyone is at different levels at that journey. And some are, spectacular at achieving all of their goals, and some struggle. And it doesn't really matter the struggle and how you get there. It's just that you tried to arrive. So yeah, that's that in general. That's where I'm at. But I love what I do, and I probably spread myself a little all over the place, mainly because naturopathic doctors, especially on the East Coast, are few and far between. So there are no medical schools anymore on the East Coast, and for naturopaths at least. And so with that, I see folks from like in North Carolina, pretty much all of Southwest Virginia, West Virginia, a little bit in northern South Carolina and East Tennessee, North Georgia, Maryland. Yeah, so my territory is big. I do a lot of driving, but I just want to give people an option if they don't have one, and if they don't have one, they can't make a choice. So that's kind of where I stand with everything.
Awesome.
Yeah.
What drew you to medicine in the first place?
So I always was intrigued with like biology, um, or plants, nature, that kind of thing. As a kid, when I was 8 or so, I fell out of a tree. My dad was pushing me in a hammock, and I fell out of the hammock, like at top, like I was like wrapped up and like fell on my tailbone, kind of thing. And he took me to a chiropractor. He had always gone to a chiropractor, and that chiropractor fixed my issue. And that's what I was thinking about doing initially, as being a chiropractor. And I've always had a pretty good sense with my hands. Um, and then I found out about osteopathic medicine, and I was like, well, that's even better. I can do the hand stuff and all the medicine stuff. And then, later down the road, I found naturopathic medicine. So that incorporates all the modalities I love, the herbal lore and hands-on manipulation, nutrition, being mindful and being outside, and all of the things, right? And so my toolbox is vast, and I try to use all of those things on a regular basis.
Awesome. Can you also give us a definition or differentiation between what you do and functional medicine and
Sure.
integrative medicine? And
Yeah.
just give us a definition there.
Yeah. So I get this question a lot, and the analogy I like to use is if you're learning a second language, and while some people will learn that second language incredibly well, sometimes with immersion or sometimes with just really hard practice, um, they know the language well. Others kind of Spanglish it through, and there's some functional and integrative doctors that they'll do a couple courses on a weekend, or they'll do a functional um, or integrative rotation for a year. A common one was the Dr. Andrew Weil. And while it's a great rotation, and I applaud those practitioners for breaking the mold and trying to learn more, some of them do it just for marketing. Some of them are awesome, and sometimes you don't know until you work with that individual. What I find with most functional and integrative doctors is that their knowledge base is often not as strong in other modalities, like herbal medicine, for instance. They'll their first and foremost draw is usually drugs, and that's their comfort zone. And there's not necessarily anything wrong with that, but their strength is not in that. Whereas as a naturopath, we learn all of those things at the same time. So we learn herbal medicine alongside pharmacology. In certain states, we can prescribe. Virginia is not one of them. But where I went to school, you can do pretty much anything. Basically, trainings under like a family doctor, and so you can do minor surgical procedures and all kinds of things. Where in Virginia, it's kind of like, well, you can be here, but you can't do X, Y, and Z. Um, but I know some wonderful functional and integrative doctors that really, really care and constantly strive to improve their knowledge. And some of them are just exceptional. I've met a couple that are not as good.
Mm,
Um, but part of that is just, again, time.
yeah.
We don't know what we don't know, but they're trying, and so that is awesome. And those colleagues, when they have questions, they usually will reach out, and
Mhm.
I'm definitely open to helping educate those that want to know more, and
Yeah.
and I can learn from them too. So the river goes both ways.
Yeah. Awesome. Great. Thanks for, um, yeah, just clarifying that, because I
Yeah.
know a lot of times people are like, "Well, I want to do something different than just mainstream medicine, but I'm not really
Mhm.
sure what all these different labels
Right.
mean." And then things like Ayurveda are kind of, or Chinese medicine or whatever, even kind of like
Yeah.
further outside of those um, rings that might come out of different ways of treating things. So let's dive into looking at some, this community is mostly women, and I
Mhm.
specialize in women's health. And so one of the things that I had asked if we could talk about is what trends are you seeing and some of the issues that are really prevalent in women's health right now?
So, as a naturopathic doc, I probably see primarily women as well. So, probably 70 to 75% of the practice is women of various ages. The rest is split between kids and men, probably kids on the next level. And I see a lot of hormone imbalance issues, thyroid concerns, a lot of autoimmune concerns. And a lot of times, these women and patients in general just are not heard. And that's one of the biggest concerns is that there's not enough time for traditional doctors to basically sit down, really get to know that patient and move forward. And it's sad because doctors, all of us go to into medicine to help people. And as young little spry medical students, we're like, we're going to save the world. And then we get through it, and the society, like the hospital system or whatever, tells us that we don't have time, and that it's the essence, and there's money here. If you don't do it in 15 minutes, you don't get paid out like you should, and da 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 da. Right? So it's like, well, what? And you're kind of a slave to it. Um, in medical school, you're not taught business either. So like you don't necessarily have a foundation to go out on your own easily and compete with these huge hospital systems. So a lot of times patients, they get their one question answered and that's all they have time for. And a lot of times it's not even, they don't even get the full picture. They go in, okay, thyroid issue. Okay, this person is cold and their hair's falling out and da da da. And we'll do a lab real quick. We'll just run a TSH and we'll just prescribe a medication. And that's it. They don't have any other concerns like what are their stress levels, what's going on, what are their hormone levels, how old are they, what are their cortisol levels, are there food sensitivities or allergies that they should be considering that are affecting or barriers to achieving health? And so they don't have enough time to go into that depth and breadth, whereas you know naturopathic doctors often do, or other alternative healthcare professionals do. Um, and so I see a lot of issues with Hashimoto's, which is a autoimmune thyroiditis, right? Graves' diseases, I've seen a lot of that too. I see a lot of issues with gastrointestinal problems, um, sleep disorders, right? And a lot of and anxiety, right? We all struggle with anxiety, and women in particular struggle a lot because there's so many pressures that they feel, um, and society puts on them. And some of that is, and if they're mothers, that just takes it up even a higher notch because it's like as soon as they have that little critter, I call it a critter, sorry, that it's like they have a sixth sense that's created, right?
Mm,
It's like your mom says, "I have
mhm.
eyes in the back of my head." Well, they do, right? They can feel and sense all of that, and where men often don't have that extra layer.
Mhm.
And some do. There are some very empathic men. I think naturopathic doctors who are men are definitely more on that empathic side and are in touch
Mm,
with that feminine side of energy more than traditional doctors. Not always, but that's what I find. And most naturopaths are women too.
mm,
70% of my class was women. There was 10 of
mhm,
us out of like 70. So that was it.
mhm.
But I see a lot of menstrual issues, fertility issues, um, and I use a lot of herbal medicine with this. Nutrition, of course, is a huge one,
Yeah.
but I think the biggest one is mental emotional health.
Mm,
That is probably one of the biggest hurdles because there's so much trauma in many women's lives.
yeah.
There are so many women that have sexual abuse, from various levels,
Mm,
from starting from a young age. Pretty much every woman I talk to has some sort of sexual trauma,
mm,
and it breaks my heart. It breaks my
yeah,
heart,
yeah.
and I can't go back and fix that trauma, but my goal is to help guide and direct them into to a better viewpoint of that.
Mhm,
Or guide them to someone who can really match and help them heal through that trauma.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
but
it's
yeah.
hard to separate. I mean, it does, I work with women within a year-long container, and so a
Mhm,
lot of those pieces really come up as we take better care of ourselves, there's this healing that happens just by, like, advocating
mhm,
for better nutrition or, like,
right.
deciding to, have a morning practice of movement or meditation or whatever that does connect us into feeling part of a greater whole, because whatever trauma we've experienced, everybody has some trauma in their lives. It leads to a feeling of separation, and I think that that's a really great point that you make, that that's part of the bigger picture. We're not just looking at the thyroid like you were saying and just being like, here, take these drugs. It's, what has caused the thyroid to give up, and that's an emotional, um, more of a spiritual kind of journey there than
Mhm,
just being like, oh, this organ is deficient, and that, like, shame blame piece too of something's wrong with you, so now you have to take a drug because you're defective somehow. And how do we bring the conversation back to, we're whole, and
mhm,
what went off the path of ease somewhere along the line
yeah,
that led us to believe that we weren't whole, and then for our system to align with that false belief
yeah. No,
and then
absolutely.
manifest disease.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
So when you look at something like an autoimmune disease, so this is something that I see, and I'm curious if you see this too. And you said, like, becoming a mother is very, um it puts a lot of strain. Like, so not only are you growing a person inside you and giving your bodily resources, right, to creating a person, but then there's that hypervigilance that happens after birth, that you're listening constantly even when you're asleep, like, did the
Right.
baby move, did they need something, and they're still breathing, right? That there's this kind of, cortisol and adrenaline imbalance, right, that happens. And what I see, I work a lot with older women, so women who are postmenopausal or perimenopausal, but not right at the birth, time. But what I see is, I feel like I can draw a correlation back to the depletion that started
Mhm.
postpartum.
Yep.
Do you see that too?
Absolutely, absolutely,
Yeah.
and, with older women, um, that trauma is just carried forward, and it can manifest in a variety of different ways, right? And we it almost that mental emotional trauma like manifests itself as physical, right? So
Mhm.
whether it's holding weight in a certain area or pain in a certain area, um, and I think it's interesting that, like, say thyroid issues like Hashimoto's or just hypothyroidism is more common in women than men.
Yeah.
And a lot of times it's you have like an enlarged thyroid, which sits right here. Okay. And a lot of times if it starts to enlarge, it feels like you're being choked. Your voice is being silenced. And a lot of women have that in their lives,
Mhm.
which I find very interesting. Very, very, very
Yes.
interesting.
Yeah.
And so you correct some of those deficiencies and allow and give them a voice and help their body move along and remove those barriers of healing, and you often improve their situation tenfold.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's a
Yeah.
lot of fear surrounding that too. Like there's that certainty of I know what my life has been like for the last 50 years, or for 60 years or 70 years. I want something different, but I don't know what that is, and it's scary. And so
Right.
there's also resistance you meet with that.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, women who've had, radical procedures to stop heavy menstrual bleeding. Well, you took away the organ that's creating the problem, but you didn't really get rid of the problem,
Mhm.
right? There's still issues in that imbalance. And now, they're totally deficient because they don't have any organ at all to produce estrogen or progesterone or
Right.
testosterone or very little, you know. So how do we compensate for that? There's bioidentical, which is not always the best answer. There's herbal, but a lot of times it's delving down that road and just giving them a space to be heard and
Mhm.
giving those women a space to feel comfortable and safe
Yeah,
and be in their
absolutely.
feminine. You know,
Yes.
that is the one that's the hardest thing for a lot of men to do.
Mhm.
It's also hard for women to allow men to be in the masculine. We've gotten this
Mm.
weird like dichotomy of, well, a man has to be this direction or a woman has to be this direction, and we're all parts of the same.
Yeah.
We just, what parts are we expressing, and which
Yes.
parts are we allowing in?
Yeah.
And being able to hear those from whether it's a same-sex partnership, because that can happen too,
Yeah.
where one partner is not heard or over
Mhm.
the other, or a heterosexual relationship or whatever, or even family, all those
Right.
things. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, rabbit hole.
Right. Yeah. We could probably talk for many, many hours here. Um, so when we look at all of, many of the things you just mentioned, kind of the umbrella of autoimmune, if we look at thyroid issues, um, and and sleep issues as well, that all of those basically come back to issues of depletion and
Hmm.
how we're constantly asking more of our bodies, minds, and spirits than what is sustainable over the long term. I mean, we all have times when we need to like
Hmm.
push and kind of like get something, but if that is how we live forever and ever and ever, then we get messages from our bodies. And this is what I work with a lot, is like listening with the ear of your heart.
Hmm.
What is your body saying? Not, oh, I'm in pain, I need to just ignore it and take a painkiller and say, body, get in line and behave. But what is that pain telling me? And how do you see like our culture that pushes us towards depletion? Like it's counterculture for
Yeah,
us to rest. I mean, this is one of the things I'm preaching right now in this group is, it's winter. Everything in the natural world has gone to sleep, right? And like it's time for us to do that more and more. I mean, we're still, diurnal creatures that want to do a little bit, but a lot less. And,
right.
to be a little more internal, get more sleep, take more alone time, dream, be in a dream state more,
Yeah,
focus on your intuition. Like that's the seasonal rhythm. And yet we live in this culture that's just like, if you have any resources of energy or anything, you must spend them.
right. No, it's absolutely, and I'm guilty of this is charged too,
Oh, me
and
too. I
yeah, like
mean, it's my recovery.
yeah, no, totally. In winter, always I slow down a little bit, but there's still always that like drive and that push.
Yeah.
And part of that's just our American culture in particular. Pretty much every other culture has periods of rest throughout the day.
Yeah.
You
Right.
know, like even in Europe, like it's becoming a little bit more of like stress of being like on time. But like in Italy, the store opens at 9-ish, maybe it's 10, maybe they don't come in at all that day, and
Right.
and it can be really frustrating coming from, like, the US where everything's, like, 24/7.
Yeah. Or there's
Um,
a closed period of time, like from 1 to 3 in the afternoon, and then the store opens back up,
right, right,
right? Or
and
siesta
so
in Mexico.
yeah, allowing ourselves to rest is incredible. Like, sleep is probably the most restorative thing that we can
Yeah.
do, and sometimes we almost get hyper obsessed with sleep too. So the body, and I listened to one of I think it's Sadat Guru. He said something, and I'm gonna butcher this up probably, but he's like, the body does not necessarily need sleep; it desires rest,
Mm.
peace. And I thought about that. I was like, huh, because sometimes it's sitting still, right? Slowing your mind down, not doing anything, right? Not engaging it with scrolling on your phone or watching TV, just being still and silent with yourself
Yeah.
and allowing your body to be still, but not necessarily asleep, right?
Yeah, and that's the
And
practice of meditation too, which
right,
is letting everything settle, and then, like, your consciousness opens up to a
right,
greater whole.
right.
That's very healing.
Right, and that
Mhm.
can be sometimes more rejuvenating than 8 hours of sleep,
Right.
and, traditionally in, like, certain in many cultures and native tribes, like, sleep is not 8 hours. You're just like,
Mhm.
"Oh, this is very convenient. Sleep for 8
Right.
hours." Usually, it's broken up into 2 or 3 segments throughout the day.
Mm.
So, you might have a 3 or 4-hour segment, and then you wake up and, for a couple hours, and you go back to sleep. And there's certain things that get done. Maybe it's because there's safety things, and animals do this too.
Yeah.
They'll sleep during parts of the day where it's a little bit safer, and then they'll also be up at certain parts of the night because they're more at risk,
Yeah.
or somebody is up and they take turns.
Mhm. Right.
Um, we've
Rotation.
lost this. Yeah, we've lost this ability to say, okay, let's take rest. And like, and I have so many people that, you know, unfortunately, I work for myself, so if I don't feel like top notch and I'm not busy, I'll just close my calendar and take the rest that I need. And I'm getting better at doing this each and every
Mm.
year. And I have so many patients that come in that will work through their sickness because they don't have sick time, or they
Mm.
don't get paid for it, or they're that stressed in their budget that they can't do that.
Yeah.
Or they won't allow themselves to do that because they consider it to be weak,
Right.
right?
Right.
And I'm
We
like,
don't wanna show
well,
weakness.
right. It's like, hey, it's not weak to take care of yourself. It's actually great. And it's also really, really considerate, because what happens if you get everybody else sick in the office,
Right.
right? Or maybe you're not super sick, but you're feeling not great. And if you can work from home, you know, at a limited capacity. So that way you're being compassionate
Right.
to others,
Yeah.
right?
But we tend to have that, like, we all have to be superhuman. We're
Hmm.
never sick, never weak. I'm just gonna shift it because we just have a few minutes left. What are some of your favorite herbs for this time of year?
Oh my gosh. I've got a wonderful, like, antiviral blend, and, like, basically after Christmas, I went through almost half a gallon of it just because
Oh,
people were just dropping left and right. And I was like, I guess I better be taking it too. Um, and but the main ingredients of that, the three that I would say I really love, one is Ligusticum porterii, which is also known as OSHA.
mm,
It's in the carrot family. It's got like it tastes like kind of like a spicy celery. Not spicy like hot pepper spicy, but it kind of has a lot of antiviral components to it. It's it breaks up mucus a little bit, and it just kind of calms and soothes the throat, and I love it. It's probably one of my favorites. People love echinacea. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Great. Echinacea is fine, but there's other herbs that do a great job too. Let's see, rose hips. Rose hips is something, especially if it's done in like a honey, like a oxymel or a glycerate. It is fantastic. For one, kids love it, and you can mix up really nasty tasting herbs, and it will hide the flavor. And it has vitamin C in there. If you have a sore, like, raw throat, it has a mucilaginous type of quality to it, so it'll help kind of soothe that sore throat. And it's pretty readily available. And if you take it just as a tea or something like that, it makes a nice, almost lemonade type of tasting tea. So you can always add that to a tea. Um, Probably elderberry. Elderberry is a favorite of many, whether it's in a gummy format, a tea format, tincture format, whatever. It tastes good, it's antioxidants, and it's safe. It's super safe. Where like echinacea is great, but it's not meant to be taken long term. So if you're taking this as part of like a general immune blend or something like that, you might want to reconsider, because it can be harmful to the liver. You have to take quite a bit, but I wouldn't worry about it for most people. But yeah, and then the one more that I like is oh, it was on the tip of my tongue just a second ago. Like reishi. You know, it's a wonderful, and it grows here in the Appalachians. I'm actually drinking reishi and tea right now with a little bit of raw honey, and it just helps boost up the immune system. It's a mild tasting flavor, whether it's tea or tincture, and you can pretty much find it anywhere these days. So those are my
Awesome.
probably 4 go-tos.
Great. I'm drinking turkey tail astragalus.
All right. Yeah, no, astragalus is also really fantastic.
Yeah.
I love astragalus, and traditionally, like Chinese practitioners will put it in soups, like chicken soup.
Yeah.
So, like I make a chicken astragalus soup. I made 2.5 gallons of chicken soup to have on hand, not just for me, but like if I have really sick patients, I'll keep a couple in the freezer at the office.
Oh,
So I'm like, here, you don't have to even worry about it. Here's a quart. They're like, what? And it's like homemade everything. It's not gluten free because I make my own egg noodles, but the
mm,
chicken is farm raised. The eggs that go in the noodles are farm raised. Most of the veggies in there are farm raised. Um, but it's probably the most golden yellow broth you'll see because it's just free range chicken in there. But
awesome.
yeah, no, it's one of those wholesome things that I try to
Yeah.
keep in hand.
Well, that's great. Yes, and I didn't even ask you about your farm. Maybe we can have you back and we can talk more about food as medicine
Sure.
um, and creating your own food sources that you know where things are coming from. So I know you work with people from all over. If folks that are watching this are interested in finding out more about working with you, where can they find you?
If you just go to newrivernaturalhealth.com, that will give you all the information on scheduling, pricing, membership plans. There is a blog that's there. I haven't been as good at keeping it up lately, but there's information over the last 10
Busy.
years on there. You can ask questions, and there's various ways to get a hold of me via phone, the scheduler, text. All of that is available to you guys.
Great. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate you being here today. And those of you who have questions, feel free to share those, and we'll see what insights come from this sharing today. Thank you so much for your
Thank you,
time and
Hannah.
expertise. All right. Take
Yeah, no,
care.
thank you for letting me hear